All right, welcome to another episode of Four to Beam Up. Today I have my two regular guest hosts, my adopted brother Steven and Ethan joining us from his halfway house, completing his community service hours. And our guest host for the week is Mario.
Hey.
So this week's episode was it was called Where No Man Has Gone Before. It's the third episode of the first season. Not counting that unaired pilot. To sum up this episode, they crossed the forbidden zone of the galaxy, and they got shocked by some kind of energy wave, and it gave two crew members extra powers. One of them turned evil. One of them was kind of turning evil, but she mostly stayed good as long as she could, long enough to give Kirk time to defeat and kill the evil guy. Any first thoughts on this episode?
Well, I wanted to say, you just got a recording of the entire ship being destroyed after going across this edge of the galaxy. Why in God's name would you go, oh, you know what? We got to do it too. They all died. I'm sure we'll be fine.
I remember when I was watching it, I think it was Captain Kirk. He was like, hey, our ship is built way better than their ship was, though. Our boosters are going to be able to totally get through that. Don't worry. And then it totally screws up.
Yeah, then they were totally wrong.
Not to mention the confidence boost he just got by beating Spock in chess. He's like, oh, we got this.
Do I remember correctly that 9 people died with the initial?
Yeah, I kept track of the death toll. So 9 people died initially, and then 3 more over the course of the episode.
After that explosion, 2 people started developing powers.
I think it was something of an ESP flare-up.
Well, one thing I did read, you remember how his eyes were silver? They actually put contacts, they're 2 contacts with a piece of aluminum foil in between in his eyes for that effect. I know. He said,
really?
Yeah, it would have driven me nuts, but I guess he could barely see out of it, and he had to kind of turn his head. That's why he's kind of weird in the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was impressed with that visual effect. But at the same time, I was like, I don't think he can see at all because he just looks blind the entire time. I mean, he looks like he's cocking his head like blind people do.
And that's exactly what he was doing.
That's why they killed him off. The actor could never see again.
Probably.
Technology wasn't there for Geordie LaForge yet.
That's right.
Yeah. This was also the first appearance of Scotty, Montgomery Scott, the engineer. Mario, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not a huge Star Trek person.
No, I was always kind of raised as a Star Wars kind of guy instead of a Star Trek guy. Yeah, but I mean, I've seen episodes here and there, and I've liked most of the ones that I've seen. This one was really good. I think I've seen it before, but it was.
He's got a
Hey, did I say something wrong, or his dogs really like Star Trek? Apparently,
Good times.
He thought about taking them to the pound.
Coming from a non-Star Trek fan, what would you say about just jumping into this episode, and what are your impressions?
There were some things that I noticed. I mean, it's definitely a byproduct of its time, the way that what's his name? I forget this dude's name. What's his name? The one that turns all crazy.
I think it was Gary.
Gary. Yeah, Gary. Well, when Gary meets that one girl at the beginning, and he's talking to her, he's like, hey, I thought making better people was what you were trying to do. I thought that was your job. And she's like, well, I heard that's what you like to do, pal, and that's in the quote or the line. And he's like, whoa, what a freezer unit.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. I'm like, all right, for sure. I'm like, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of funny because it felt almost like Kirk touched upon it a little bit later when he's talking to her, and he's like, hey, he's not gonna want to be with you. He's gonna want to be by himself. Ask him right now if you guys are gonna rule together. And he's like, dude, we're just gonna do this. Listen to me. And she ends up killing him because of it, I think.
Earlier in the episode, it seemed like there a lot of the interactions with the women were just made them pointed out how intelligent and level-headed the men were. It was like just like a very like the interactions kept like doing that. It was like strange.
There was a line that she said, "Oh, you know how opinionated working women can be," or something like that. I was like, "Whoa!"
Professional women do tend to. What'd she say?
You know what? I wrote it down. Women professionals do tend to overcompensate.
Yes.
That's what it was. I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And that's a common theme throughout the early series for sure. We've been commenting on that on like every episode. What recurring themes are we seeing in these early episodes other than the
Rampant sexism.
Blatant sexism, yeah.
Well, I was kind of curious. So I tried to like boil down like Star Trek episodes in general, and I was like, the themes are the general plot line too is all the same. In the grip of omnipotent alien, crew goes crazy, stranded on planet. Those are like the 3 plots that I have, and I think so far like the first two or 3 out of 4 episodes were in the grip of omnipotent alien or dangerous alien.
It's fun watching these old. I was always a fan of just the Next Generation. I never really looked back at these older ones, and it's like I like this episode was the most fun for me so far. I really liked it.
One thing that keeps showing up is like as soon as a human gets any kind of magical powers or anything like that, they just like immediately start using it for evil.
Right.
Like that kid in Charlie X. But no one ever just uses it for good. Like let's fix the spaceship and let's get a cappuccino machine or whatever, and like
it all just comes out that they've hated everyone this whole time.
Yeah. And it's not just evil. It's like very often like a very cruel kind of evil that they just torment the lesser beings. Who knows? Maybe if we got those powers, we do the same thing.
That's what they will say too,
Yeah.
Unlimited power corrupts.
It wouldn't corrupt me.
That's. I can't remember who the doctor was. Was the doctor the older guy this time? Because it keeps switching back.
Yeah, it was an old guy.
McCoy is eventually the regular doctor, but since these early episodes, they kind of like they filmed them, but then they didn't really air them in the same order. They're kind of going back and forth between the doctors. And what do you guys think of that fight?
Brouhaha.
It really didn't seem like they were doing anything dangerous, but they both had stunt doubles. I mean, like all they're doing is pretending to punch each other, but they're still stunt doubles.
And Kirk has demonstrated his ability to do some stunts before. Like he can do his little flip ninja roll and throw people and everything, but these guys had blatant stunt doubles to do simplistic athletic moves, I think.
I mean, it's not like they're going to bang their head on a rock or anything. It's all styrofoam.
Right, they're all rubber rocks.
The physics didn't really add up. It's like like they hadn't quite choreographed or edited where like the blows just didn't seem like they could possibly be doing any harm, Yeah.
Yeah.
Who noticed, this is some real nerdy trivia here, but who noticed the big mistake in that episode, or would come to later be a mistake when they wrote one of the characters? Remember the tombstone?
His middle name, R.T.
Right.
Tiberius.
Right. On the tombstone it said James R. Kirk, but his actual middle name is Tiberius, so it should be T.
I sometimes like do things where like I'll watch something and then I do this like dive on Wikipedia just to kind of like learn everything, because I was like interested in the guy. I'm like, does this guy ever pop up again? Because he has like omnipotent power, like, and they just buried him, like he can't like get out of that. Like, so I'm like, okay, he's got to show up again. So I look him up and everything, and I guess what they did was it was a mess up, but then they corrected it in a comic by saying that was like an in-joke between the two of them, because he used to tell him to call him like rhinoceros and other words that started with an R.
They really went out of their way to what do they call that when they go back and rewrite retcon it? Retcon it. Yeah. As mentioned,
I was glad to see some redemption on the woman front.
Yeah, on her part. Yeah. And then Kirk brought up a good point when he said that he said that Gary died, performing his duty. He didn't want his service record to end badly, so he wanted it to end like that because he didn't have any choice in what happened to him. The idea of maybe the magical powers kind of overwhelmed his free will to a certain extent, and so he wasn't necessarily responsible.
He did kind of snap out of it.
A couple times, yeah, he kind of snapped out of it. Kind of made you think that maybe he's there underneath the foil eye coverings.
But ultimately, he had to die.
Yes, ultimately he had to be crushed by that giant rock.
I think it kind of plays into the fact that like the entire episode's kind of like him trying to persuade Kirk that his emotions are a bad thing for him and making decisions, and Kirk ends up using his emotions to just make that last decision to not mar his service record by saying that he was like doing bad things.
And then Spock threw in the I felt for him too, where they start to try to humanize the Vulcan character. All right. Any final thoughts on this episode, or?
I thought it was the most entertaining for me so far.
So that's it for this week. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Steven, Ethan, thank you, Mario, for joining us. Mario is a member of the band called the Flusters, and I'll put the link to his to all their social media in the description. And please hit the like and subscribe button. And this is 4 to beam up, right?
Beam up.
That's what I changed it to? All right. And we'll see you next week.
Makes no sense.
Right.
I know Homer played a dog on Itchy and Scratchy, right?
Right. Poochie.
Poochie. That's right. Yeah.
Anyway,